So I'm here with Elliot Harris, and we're on part 2 of our webinar series on risk for business. So over to you, Elliot.
Thanks, Rich. The first session covered governance and finance. Today, I want to look at operational risks and external risks. Operational risks cover all areas of the business. And one of the things that you do need to think about when you're looking at risk is how, when you mitigate a risk, is it impacting on another area of the business? So what are the areas that are typical? Getting your staff welfare and staff safety right. And of course, at this moment in time, that could not be more important. You need to have real good HR procedures in place and make sure that they are adhered to. Crisis management is another area. And crisis management isn't just about your IT crashing, although that's probably the most important thing. It's, for example, if you do have a shortage of staff in a key area because of what's happened with COVID, it's particularly concerning at the moment when you've got people who are still on furlough and the potential, of course, of having redundancies because you can't afford to bring them back. But how are you going to manage the business without these key people? It may sound strange, but getting your contract pricing, you would think would be the easiest thing in the world to get right, but it's also the easiest thing in the world to get wrong. And I'll give you one real pertinent example about that, is that the managing director, who's a key part of a particular contract, fails to cost in his own costs within the contract. It sounds daft, but it does happen. If you get the wrong staff because you got your recruitment wrong, if you're providing the wrong training, which is not suitable for your business, these are all areas that you are at risk. Getting your office rental contracts right, getting your leasing contracts right. Are you potentially saddled with long-term leases, long-term office rental which doesn't meet your needs? Obviously, you've got to have your public health and safety side, your cyber security. This is what I mean about operational risks. And it's all of these things and others, but it gives you a flavor of what you need to be thinking about. So you need to be assessing what your risks are actually in these areas, and then how do you mitigate them? Now, in some cases, it could be insurance. In some cases, it means training other people to cover some of the gaps in your business. It will depend on what the particular risk is, but that's how you assess operational risks.
Yeah, if you brought up some really good points there. I mean, staff well-being and mental health is a major topic at this moment in time. And if you speak to some of the major employers, that's their biggest single concern. They've got people who've been quite happy to take furlough, who are now coming back into a work environment and being asked to work, maybe 2 days a week, 3 days a week, maybe even 4 days a week, and really struggling with it and not knowing how to deal with it. You've got people who've been sat at home for a number of months, maybe live by themselves, and it's actually helping businesses to understand that risk in their business.
Absolutely, and indeed, it may sound daft, but this is an area where something like corporate social responsibility can help you.
Yeah.
For example, if you, as a local business, can team up with a local mental health charity, mental health charities will quite often have good counselling available. And wouldn't you be a really good employer if you had that counselling available for your business? And that would not only help your employees, but it would also help the charity concerned. That's just an example But certainly, mental health is a real big issue at the present moment in time, and one that shouldn't be taken lightly.
Absolutely. And actually, the second one down, although you mentioned IT, one of the more obvious ones during the initial lockdown period was actually PR, because a lot of businesses failed to tell people what they were doing. And
Yeah,
actually, that was the whole PR strategy gone out the window. There's just, you actually need to tell people what you're doing as a business, communicate with them, actually have a PR and comms plan in place to actually deal with those sort of things. That's fundamental, really.
absolutely essential. Quite right.
And the other interesting one coming out is the number of businesses who are now dumping their office property. I mean, unfortunately, not all businesses can do that because they're tied into leases. But it's really interesting, when the government makes statements like, we want you to work from home if you can, that's basically saying you shouldn't be going to the office. And the implications for a lease, I'm not sure what the legal standpoint is on that, but I don't know many landlords who are saying, yeah, that's fine, you can hand back your lease. I don't think that's happening at all. I think, if anything, it's the exact opposite.
It would be very rare, unless as a result they get vacant possession and makes it a more a better sale in certain circumstances. But no, absolutely, there is some revisiting of how you run your business from the location.
Yeah. It's very interesting going forward. Right, should we move on to external risks then?
Yeah, these are the things that, again, people don't necessarily think about. And my favourite is the perception of your business and the reputation of your business. And we have three absolutely stark examples there. Oxfam, which I know is the charity sector, but the behaviour of people representing them made a real dent in Oxfam's income as a result. Gerald Ratner virtually lost his business as a result of a mindless comment about his own product. And the gentleman who runs Sports Direct, Mr. Ashley, and the way he's dealt with not only Sports Direct, but his other most public public company, Newcastle United, has done nothing for his reputation. Now, in certain cases, these people may not care about their reputation. They may decide that it is not a risk for them. But I can tell you that it's a lot easier to lose a customer because you've done something wrong than it is to gain a customer. So you've got to get your perception about your business absolutely right. What about the changes in demographics, whether it's physical changes in respect of where your property is situated, and the business world and potential customer base is moving away from where your business is situated, whether it's about your whether it's about the age group that you service. Is your business age proof, if you like? Can you service all areas of the economy? This is one turbulent economic or political environment. Notice I used Brexit as the example rather than COVID, but frankly, we are in such economic and political turmoil at the present moment in time that trying to manage that particular risk is rather like nailing jelly to the wall. But nevertheless, you do have to think about what externally, in economic or political terms, could impact on your business. And again, changing government policy, there's very little you can do about it, short of being one of those few businesses who have the power to lobby Parliament and government to ensure that government policy suits their needs. But nevertheless, you've got to be able to react quickly to such changes. And finally, of course, competition. Now, interestingly, people like me who might have thought that they were reasonably okay from a competition point of view, are all of a sudden in the next few months going to see an awful lot of competition by virtue of people starting up their own business as consultants. And it doesn't matter what your business is, unless you are the first one in it, so that you can get a good established base, you're always going to be faced with competition.
Yeah, I think, to be honest, there's not an awful lot you can do about many of those things like this, is there? Really, frankly, when you look at it in the current economic climate.
In the current economic climate, no, but I think in certain things like the demographic changes and the perception of you and your business, that's something
No,
you can do something about.
No, you can.
Demographic is about keeping track of what's happening around you, keeping an eye on where your business is coming from.
No, absolutely. But as you point out, bullets 3 and 4 then come into play, which is the turbulent economic and political environment we're already sat in, COVID/Brexit, and the constantly changing government policy, where you're not really sure what's going to happen next.
I think, Rich, if you and I had the answer to that one, we'd have retired long ago.
Oh, good, yeah. But you can plan out for eventualities. I mean, there are plenty of free Brexit workshops going on at the moment where you can get everything you need to find out about, as an importer, exporter, how you can benefit from Brexit and be prepared. I mean, you have to be prepared for either no deal or a deal, but nobody knows which one. If you prepare for a no deal, at least that's the worst case scenario, isn't it?
Absolutely. And that, I think, is a good attitude towards risk. What is the worst case scenario to the risks that you face? And then, okay, what can I do about it?
Yeah, absolutely. Competition's always going to be there. There's nothing you can do about it. It's always going to change. There are always, I can't remember what the figures are, but most startups, to over 70% fail in the first 5 years of existence.
Yeah,
I think it's actually higher than that. People go back into jobs that don't like the world they've created, the uncertainty over income, and all the things they've just taken for granted over the years. And that's always very challenging, I think, when you go and start a business, is just the whole mindset around it. It's a very different sort of thing. I'm trying very hard to keep a cat from jumping up on me at this moment in time. Right, and so that's the end of our second webinar in this series. And again, Elliot, I'd like to thank you for your time today. And my name is Richard Olson. I'm from UKBA Business Advisors, along with Elliot, and we will follow up with the final session, The Risk of a Business, shortly.